The sound of the clock on the wall was the only thing breaking the silence of the mansion. Tick-tock, tick-tock. Each second dragged like an eternity as Marcus Wellington waited in the main living room of his Austin, Texas
I don't
residence.
have all day for your games.
Golden afternoon light streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, creating geometric patterns on the Italian marble floors that cost more than most people earned in a decade. But Marcus wasn't thinking about expensive floors. He wasn't thinking about anything except what was about to happen. He could hear footsteps approaching from outside, expensive heels clicking on the concrete entrance. He knew exactly who it was. Victoria Ashford always wore those red Louboutins she thought made her look powerful.
The lawyer says with the medical certificates
Today,
we got,
those
you can
same
declare I'm
shoes
mentally
would witness
incompetent
her
within
downfall.
weeks.
The front door opened.
Marcus,
Victoria entered the way she always entered anywhere, as if she owned the world, as if everyone around her was just extras in the grand story of her life.
That's
an ivory Chanel dress
that's
that probably cost 3 physical therapists' annual salaries.
Marcus is finished.
A Hermes bag
Physically,
swinging
he's
from
a
her
cripple,
arm.
and
Blonde
soon will
hair
prove he's
perfectly
mentally
styled by a
incapable,
hairdresser
too.
who charged $300 per session. She looked around the empty room, irritation crossing her perfect face when she didn't immediately see Marcus. She pulled her phone from her purse, typed something quick, probably to Rodrigo, her secret lover who wasn't so secret anymore. Not to those who knew where to look. "I'll call you back, darling," she said into the phone, her voice with that fake sweetness Marcus once mistook for charm. "This won't take long." She hung up and called out, looking around with that impatience characteristic of someone who never had to wait for anything in life. "Marcus? I don't have all day for your games." And then Marcus answered, his voice coming from above, from the staircase she thought he'd never climb again. "I'm here." Victoria turned and froze. Because there he was, Marcus Wellington, standing at the top of the marble staircase, no wheelchair, no walker, nothing but his own 2 feet planted firmly on the ground, wearing a custom-tailored Hugo Boss suit that highlighted every inch of a man who had recovered not just his physical strength, but something far more dangerous, his determination. Victoria's face lost all color. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. She blinked several times, as if seeing a ghost, as if her brain refused to process what her eyes were clearly showing. "No," she finally whispered, the word escaping almost soundlessly. "That's impossible." Marcus descended the first step, deliberately, slowly, savoring every second of the expression of absolute shock on her face. He descended the second step, the third. His steps were firm, controlled, each movement calculated to communicate a single message. "I won, you lost." "Surprise, Victoria," he said, his voice sharp as a scalpel blade. "I can walk." He continued descending, each step a silent declaration of war. "The doctors said 5% chance. Guess I'm one of the lucky ones." Victoria instinctively backed away, her survival instincts finally activating when her brain managed to process the real danger she was facing. Her back lightly hit the entrance console, and she gripped the edge with one hand, as if she needed physical support to keep from fainting. She tried to regain her composure, that mask of sophistication she wore like armor. She forced a smile that didn't come close to reaching her eyes. "Marcus, this is wonderful news." Her voice was 2 tones higher than normal, breaking slightly at the end. "It changes everything." Marcus reached the bottom of the staircase, his Oxford shoes touching the marble with a dry sound that echoed through the room. He walked directly toward her, stopping less than a meter away, deliberately invading her personal space, using his height and physical presence in a way he never could when trapped in that wheelchair. "Does it?" His voice was low, dangerous. "Does it really change anything, Victoria?" She opened her mouth to respond, but he was already pulling his phone from the inside pocket of his jacket. With slow and deliberate movements, like a magician about to reveal the final trick, he unlocked the screen, tapped an icon, turned the phone so she could see the display. Recording. 2 weeks ago. The blood drained completely from Victoria's face. Her eyes widened, fixed on the phone screen as if she were looking at a gun pointed directly at her head. Marcus pressed play. Victoria's voice filled the room, her own voice, crystal clear, unmistakable, saying words she thought would never be heard by anyone except Rodrigo. The lawyer says, with the medical certificates we got, we can declare him mentally incompetent within weeks. Victoria tried to grab the phone, her self-preservation instincts overriding any attempt to maintain appearances. Turn that off. That's illegal recording. Marcus easily raised his arm, keeping the phone out of her reach, and increased the volume. Her own voice continued, cruel and calculating, revealing every sordid detail of a conspiracy she'd built over the past 3 months. Marcus is finished. Physically, he's a cripple, and soon we'll prove he's mentally incapable too. That's when the side door opened. Robert Chen entered the room, carrying a black leather briefcase that seemed to weigh tons from its contents, not its material. He was a man in his early 50s, Asian American, grey hair impeccably combed, thin-framed glasses that gave him a professorial air, wearing a suit that communicated professional competence without being ostentatious. The recording continued, now revealing the part that would make Victoria truly panic. Rodrigo will be the new CEO. Marcus is too busy with his little therapist to notice we're draining the accounts. Robert Chen placed the briefcase on the glass coffee table, the sound of metal hitting glass cutting the air like a gunshot. He opened the briefcase with surgical precision, revealing stacks of documents, photographs, bank statements, everything organized in colored folders representing different aspects of the fraud Victoria and Rodrigo had orchestrated. The recording was still playing, now attacking the person Marcus most wanted to protect. The physical therapist? She's nobody. A poor girl from East Austin. No lawyers, no power, no threat. Miss Ashford, said Robert Chen, his voice absolutely neutral. The kind of neutrality lawyers use when they know they have all the winning cards and don't need to raise their voice to intimidate. Robert Chen, attorney at law. We need to talk about your activities. He began removing documents from the briefcase, methodically spreading them across the glass table. Each document was a piece of evidence, each photograph a silent witness to crimes Victoria thought she'd hidden perfectly. $80 million, Robert continued, his voice still calm, still professional, but with a firmness that made each word sound like a judicial sentence. Transferred over 3 months. Very clever, almost. Victoria finally found her voice, though it sounded strangled, desperate. How did you... Those accounts are offshore. Marcus finally paused the recording and put the phone back in his pocket. He walked to the Italian leather armchair that was his favorite before the accident, the one where he used to sit after long days, closing multi-million-dollar contracts. He sat down with the ease of someone who had never spent 6 months unable to make exactly that simple movement. He crossed his legs, adjusted his shirt cuffs, each gesture calculated to communicate absolute control. You underestimated me, Victoria, he said, his voice now carrying a hint of something that could almost be amusement if it weren't so cold. Fatal mistake. Robert Chen continued his methodical work, now spreading photographs across the table. Victoria and a man Marcus had never seen in person but recognized from investigations. Rodrigo Santana. Slicked back, dark, oily hair, predator's smile, eyes that calculated what each person was worth before even shaking their hands. The photographs showed Victoria and Rodrigo in situations that left no doubt about the nature of their relationship. Intimate dinners at exclusive restaurants, entering a 5-star hotel together. A passionate kiss captured by a telephoto lens in a parking lot they thought was private. 3 psychiatrists who never evaluated you, Robert said, now placing medical certificates on the table. Each one had a bright red stamp, fraudulent. All willing to testify you're incompetent, for a price. Victoria backed up until her back hit the wall. There was nowhere left to go. Physically or metaphorically, she was cornered. Her hands were visibly trembling now, all that carefully cultivated sophistication crumbling before Marcus's eyes. You can't prove anything, she tried, but her voice was weak, without conviction, the words of someone who knows they're sinking but still tries to swim. "It's your word against mine." Robert Chen allowed himself a small smile. It wasn't cruel. It was worse. It was professional. It was the smile of someone who'd played this game 1,000 times and never lost. He pulled a tablet from the briefcase, tapped the screen a few times, and turned the device toward Victoria. The screen showed a series of dated and geolocated photographs. Victoria and Rodrigo, 2 weeks before Marcus's accident, at her apartment, in the bedroom windows without curtains, angles that captured intimacy impossible to deny. "Actually, we have photos. You and Rodrigo Santana, very intimate." Robert paused, letting the word intimate hang in the air like an accusation. Dated 2 weeks before Marcus's accident. It was at that moment that Victoria broke. Completely. Tears began to fall, ruining the expensive makeup she'd carefully applied that morning. Mascara running, foundation cracking, the literal and figurative mask crumbling. "Please!" The word came out like a sob. "Marcus, please! We can work this out." Marcus stood up from the armchair, slowly, letting each second stretch. He walked until he was directly in front of her, so close he could see every imperfection the makeup tried to hide, every expression line the expensive treatments tried to erase. "You left me," he said, and there was emotion in his voice now, but it wasn't the emotion she expected. It wasn't explosive anger. It was something colder, more final. It was the voice of someone who had already gone through anger and arrived at something beyond. Acceptance, justice. "When I couldn't walk, when I needed you most, remember." For a second, just 1 second, Marcus allowed the memory to return, lying in that hospital bed. Broken body, uncertain future. And the phone vibrating with a text message, not a call, not a visit, a text message. "I can't do this, I need to move on with my life, I'm sorry." Blocked immediately after. 30 months of relationship, 8 months of engagement, a lifetime of promises. Everything destroyed in 24 digital words. "A text message," Marcus continued, his voice getting harder. "I can't do this." That's all I got. Victoria was crying openly now, not trying to hide it, not trying to maintain composure. "I was scared, Marcus. I didn't know how to handle it. I panicked. You abandoned me." Each word was pronounced separately, each word its own sentence. "And then you decided that wasn't enough. You decided to steal everything my father and I built. You decided to use my condition to declare me incompetent. You decided to destroy the one person who actually stayed." That's when the door opened again. Soft footsteps, almost silent. But Marcus would recognize them anywhere. Emma Clark descended the last steps of the staircase leading to the upper bedrooms. She was wearing her simple medical scrubs, navy blue, with the small rehabilitation clinic logo embroidered on the chest pocket. Brown hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. No makeup, no jewelry except a simple watch her father gave her before he died. Nothing to indicate she belonged in this world of mansions and fortunes. But there was something about her that made Victoria stop breathing for a second. There was a dignity, a quiet strength, a beauty that had nothing to do with expensive products or plastic surgery. It was the beauty of someone who knew exactly who they were and didn't apologize for it. Emma stopped on the last step, observing the scene with those dark brown eyes that had seen Marcus at his worst moments and never blinked. Never looked away, never showed anything but determination to see him recovered. Victoria saw her, and something exploded inside her. Not remorse, not shame. Pure rage, the rage of someone who's losing and needs to blame someone. "Her!" Victoria spat the word like venom. "The little nobody who turned you against me." Marcus didn't take his eyes off Victoria. He didn't need to look at Emma to know she was there. He could feel her presence like a soldier feels their partner covering their back in battle. "Emma didn't turn me against you." Marcus said, his voice returning to that dangerous calm. You did that yourself when you chose money over loyalty. He extended his hand backward without looking. Emma descended the last step and walked toward him. Her hand found his perfectly, fingers interlacing like two puzzle pieces made to fit. There was no hesitation, no doubt, just absolute trust. Marcus pulled Emma to stand beside him. United. This is Emma Clark, the woman who stayed when you ran. Victoria looked at Emma with hatred that could burn. But Emma didn't look away, didn't back down, simply stood there beside Marcus, offering silent presence that said more than 1,000 words. The woman who saw me at my worst, Marcus continued, and didn't flinch. The woman who believed in me when doctors said impossible. Emma finally spoke. Her voice was soft, but there was steel in it. The kind of strength that comes from surviving things that would break weaker people. I heard your plan, Miss Ashford. A slight Texas accent making the words even more authentic. Every word, in the laundry room 2 weeks ago. And suddenly, Victoria understood. Understood completely. It wasn't Marcus who discovered it. It was her, the little nobody from East Austin. The girl Victoria planned to destroy professionally was exactly who destroyed all her plans. You were going to destroy my career, Emma continued, still calm, still in control. Spread lies about an inappropriate relationship with a vulnerable patient. Victoria tried to regain some power, tried to use the only weapon she still had. Social class. You're nobody, a girl from the poor side who saw an opportunity and took it. Emma took a step forward, small step, but powerful. I'm a licensed physical therapist who worked 16-hour days in free clinics. Pause. What are you besides a trust fund and designer labels? The silence that followed was absolute. Victoria tried again, desperate now. He's a billionaire, you fool. You'll never fit in his world. Society will eat you alive. And Emma smiled. Not a cruel smile, just genuine, small, but absolutely without fear. I don't need to fit your world, Miss Ashford. Marcus and I are building our own. Marcus pulled Emma closer, arm around her waist, a public gesture of unity that made it absolutely clear where his loyalties lay. Emma saved my life. Not just my legs, my soul. Something you never cared about. Robert Chen, who had remained silent during this entire exchange, finally interrupted. Lawyers know when a dramatic moment needs to end and business needs to be concluded. Touching reunion, he said, without a trace of sarcasm, just factual statement. But we have business. Miss Ashford, you have exactly 2 options. He placed a document on the table. The title was in large letters, Confession and Settlement Agreement. Option 1. Sign this confession. Return every stolen dollar. Leave Austin permanently. Robert pulled out his phone, tapped the screen a few times, turned it toward Victoria. The screen showed a saved contact, Detective Morrison, Austin PD Fraud Division. Option 2. I press call. You're arrested within 20 minutes. Federal fraud charges, 20 to 30 years. Victoria looked between the document and the phone, her options narrowing until there were no real options, just consequences. Choose, Robert said simply. You have 30 seconds. The clock on the wall became the only sound again. Tick-tock, tick-tock. Each second an eternity. Victoria looked at Marcus, searching for some mercy, some softness she could exploit. She found nothing, just the CEO who built an empire through tough decisions. Just the man she abandoned when he was down, just cold and deserved justice. I'll sign, Victoria finally whispered. Robert placed a pen in front of her. Victoria picked it up with hands trembling so badly she almost dropped it. She looked at Marcus one last time. But I loved you, Marcus. Her voice broke completely. I really did. Once. Marcus didn't blink, didn't soften, just responded with the brutal truth she needed to hear. No, you loved what I could give you. There's a difference. Sign. And Victoria signed. Each signature a surrender, each initial an admission of guilt. Each date a nail in the coffin of the life she had planned with Rodrigo using Marcus's stolen money. When she finished, she dropped the pen as if it burned. Robert collected the documents methodically, checking each signature, each initial, each date. Satisfied, he stored everything in the briefcase. Victoria stood up. Her legs were shaky. She picked up her Hermes bag from the floor where it had fallen. For a moment, just one moment, she looked old. Not in years, in soul. She walked to the door. Each step was a defeat. Each body movement communicated that she understood. It was over, really over. At the door, she stopped, hand on the doorknob. She didn't turn completely, just enough for her profile to be visible. "You'll regret this, Marcus. She's not one of us." Pause. "High society will destroy her. They'll make her life hell. You know they will." But it was Emma who responded, not Marcus. Emma, with that quiet strength that comes from surviving things much worse than rich people's gossip. "Let them try. I survived poverty, Miss Ashford. I can survive mean girls in expensive dresses." Marcus added the final blow, voice low, calm, but absolutely serious. "And Victoria, if you or Rodrigo ever come near Emma, near my company, near Austin, there won't be a second warning." Victoria left. The door closed behind her. The sound echoed through the mansion like the end of a chapter. Silence. Marcus, Emma, and Robert Chen stood there for long seconds. No one spoke. They didn't need to. What needed to be said had been said. What needed to be done had been done. Finally, Emma let out a long breath she'd been holding for weeks. Marcus felt the tension leaving his body. Robert Chen closed his briefcase with a satisfied click. "Well," Robert said finally, allowing himself a small smile. "That went better than expected. She could have chosen option 2. Marcus finally looked at Emma, really looked, and saw not just the woman who saved his life, but the woman he wanted to spend the rest of it with. "Thank you," he said softly, "for being brave enough to tell me what you heard." Emma held his face between her hands. "Thank you for believing me, for trusting me, for—" She stopped, searching for words. "For being you." And there, in that room where the confrontation that would change everything had just happened, Marcus Wellington kissed Emma Clark. It wasn't their first kiss. It wouldn't be their last. But it was the kiss that sealed something bigger than romance. It was the kiss that sealed partnership, equality, mutual respect. The kind of love that doesn't need perfect bodies or ideal situations, because it's built on the solid foundation of seeing each other completely and choosing to stay anyway. Robert Chen discreetly left the room, giving them privacy, smiling to himself, because in 30 years of practicing law, he rarely saw justice served so perfectly. And outside, Victoria Ashford got into her white Mercedes, started the engine, and drove away from the life she could have had if she'd chosen love instead of greed. But inside the mansion, Marcus and Emma weren't thinking about Victoria. They were thinking about the future, a future they would build together, not despite the differences between their worlds, but because their differences made each of them stronger. The clock kept ticking, tick-tock, tick-tock. But now each second was no longer a countdown to confrontation. It was a count forward, to full recovery, to marriage, to building something bigger than fortune or empire, to building true love. And that, Marcus finally understood, was the only kind of wealth that truly mattered. If you made it this far, thank you for staying with us. Subscribe and hit the bell, because the next chapter shows how we got here, how a billionaire CEO ended up in a wheelchair, how a girl from East Austin became the woman who saved him, and the moment everything changed between them. You won't want to miss it. The highway stretched endlessly under the Texas sun. Interstate 35 between San Antonio and Austin, a route Marcus Wellington had driven hundreds of times in the past decade. Usually he had a driver. Usually he sat in the back of the Mercedes reviewing contracts, taking calls, managing the empire he'd built from nothing. But today, he was driving himself. BMW M5, midnight blue, the kind of car that cost more than most people's houses. He liked driving when he needed to think. And today, he needed to think about the Riverside Tower project, a $300 million development that could make or break the next fiscal quarter. His phone rang through the car's Bluetooth system. Victoria. He almost didn't answer. Their relationship had been strained lately, though he couldn't quite put his finger on why. She was always busy with her own social obligations, her charity galas that were more about being seen than actually helping anyone, her shopping trips to New York that lasted entire weekends. "Hey," he answered, keeping his eyes on the road. Traffic was heavy for a Thursday afternoon. "Where are you?" Victoria's voice sounded distracted, like she was doing something else while talking to him. He could hear background noise, music, voices. Heading back from San Antonio. The investors' meeting ran long. "You'll be home for the Ashford Foundation Gala tomorrow night, right? Mother specifically asked about you." Marcus felt the familiar weight of obligation settling on his shoulders. Another event where he'd stand around in a tuxedo, making small talk with people who pretended to care about charitable causes, while really just protecting their tax shelters. "Yeah, I'll be there." "Good. I already told everyone you're presenting the keynote check. 50,000, right? That's what we agreed." He hadn't agreed to anything, but he knew better than to argue when Victoria had already made promises to her mother. "Sure, 50,000. Perfect. I have to go, darling. Hair appointment. Love you." She hung up before he could respond. Marcus stared at the road ahead, that familiar hollowness settling in his chest. When was the last time Victoria had asked him about his day, about the projects he was working on, about anything that mattered to him beyond how it made her look to her society friends? He shook his head, focusing back on the road. This was what successful relationships looked like, right? Partnerships, mutual benefit. Nobody got fairy tales in real life. Nobody got... The semi-truck came out of nowhere. Later, the police report would say the driver had a heart attack, massive coronary that killed him instantly, sending the 18-wheeler into an uncontrolled swerve across 3 lanes of traffic. The truck jackknifed, its massive cargo container swinging like a wrecking ball directly into the path of Marcus's BMW. Marcus saw it happening. Time slowed down the way it does in moments before death. He saw the truck's tires, taller than his car, black rubber filling his entire windshield. He jerked the wheel hard to the right, instinct overriding logic, knowing even as he did it that there was nowhere to go, no escape from physics and momentum and terrible timing. The impact was thunder, metal screaming, glass exploding. His body thrown against the seatbelt with force that felt like being hit by a train. The airbag deployed, slamming into his face, and then the BMW was spinning, rolling, the world tumbling in a kaleidoscope of sky and asphalt and blood and pain and nothing. When Marcus opened his eyes, he couldn't breathe. Something was crushing his chest. Everything hurt in ways he didn't know were possible. He tried to move and realized he was upside down. The BMW had rolled. He was hanging from his seatbelt, suspended in the wreckage of what used to be a $200,000 car. He could hear sirens in the distance, voices shouting. Someone was trying to open the door, but it was crushed, mangled metal that wouldn't budge. Through the shattered windshield, he could see the semi-truck on its side, diesel fuel leaking across the highway, other cars stopped at crazy angles, people running. "Sir, sir, can you hear me?" A voice, male, urgent. "Don't move! Fire department is coming!" Marcus tried to respond, but when he opened his mouth, only a groan came out. Pain radiated from everywhere and nowhere. His head felt like it had been split open. His right arm hung at a wrong angle. And his legs, he tried to move his legs, nothing. He tried again, focusing every ounce of will he had. Move, move, damn it. Move, nothing. Panic hit him then, worse than the physical pain. He could see his legs. They were still there, but he couldn't feel them, couldn't move them. It was like they belonged to someone else, like they'd been disconnected from his brain, like, "Sir, stay calm, we're getting you out." But Marcus couldn't stay calm, because somewhere in the shattered remains of his consciousness, in the part of his brain that understood consequences, he knew that everything had just changed. That the life he'd built, the empire he'd created, the future he'd planned, all of it was gone. The last thought he had before shock and blood loss pulled him under was wondering if Victoria would even bother to visit him in the hospital. 6 weeks later, Emma Clark stood in the small kitchen of the 2-bedroom apartment she shared with her mother in East Austin. The morning sun filtered through the thin curtains that had hung in the same window for the past 15 years. She was making breakfast, scrambled eggs and toast, the same breakfast she'd made almost every morning since her father died when she was 8. Her mother, Lupita, sat at the small formica table that had probably been outdated even when they bought it second-hand. She was watching Emma with an expression that Emma had learned to recognize over the years. It was the look that meant Lupita had something important to say, but was trying to figure out the right way to say it. "Mija," Lupita finally began, stirring her coffee slowly. "I need to talk to you about something." Emma brought 2 plates to the table and sat down across from her mother. "What's wrong? Is it your blood sugar again? I told you." No, it's not about me." Lupita paused, choosing her words carefully. "It's about the Wellingtons, the family I work for in Polanco." Emma nodded. She knew about the Wellingtons. Her mother had cleaned their house for almost 20 years, since before Emma was born. She'd heard stories about the son, Marcus, how he'd built a construction empire from nothing after his father died in a workplace accident, how he was brilliant and driven and completely focused on success. What about them? Marcus had an accident, a bad one. He's paralyzed from the waist down. The doctors say he might never walk again. Lupita's voice was heavy with genuine sadness. Despite the class difference, she'd always spoken well of the Wellington family. They'd been kind to her in ways many wealthy employers weren't. Emma felt a pang of sympathy. She'd worked with enough paralysis patients at the community clinic to know how devastating the diagnosis could be, especially for someone young and previously active. "That's terrible. He needs a full-time physical therapist," Lupita continued, "someone who can work with him intensively, someone he can trust." She paused. "I told Dr. Ramirez, his doctor, about you." Emma set down her fork. "Mom, I work at the clinic. My patients there need me." "I know, Mija, but..." Lupita reached across the table and took her daughter's hand. "They're offering $25,000 a week." The number hit Emma like a physical blow. She actually gasped. "What? 25,000 per week, with room and board if you need it, full medical benefits. They're desperate, Emma. He's been through 5 therapists already. None of them lasted more than a week." Emma's mind was racing. $25,000 a week. That was, she did the math quickly, $100,000 a month, more than she made in an entire year at the clinic. It was enough to pay for her mother's eye surgery, enough to clear their debts, enough to actually save money for the first time in her life, but she'd be leaving her patients at the clinic. People who depended on her, people who couldn't afford private care, people like Mrs. Rodriguez, who was finally regaining movement in her arm after the stroke. Like Danny, the teenager recovering from a motorcycle accident who called her his hero. "Mom, I don't know. Just meet him," Lupita said gently. "Dr. Ramirez said he's difficult, angry, pushing everyone away. But I remember Marcus when he was younger, before he became so focused on business. He was a good kid who worked himself half to death trying to honor his father's memory. He deserves someone who'll fight for him." Emma looked at her mother's face. She saw the lines that years of hard work had carved there. She saw the hands roughened from decades of cleaning other people's houses. She thought about the diabetes medication they had to ration because they couldn't always afford a full month's supply. She thought about the eye surgery Lupita needed but kept postponing because they didn't have the money. "Okay," Emma heard herself say, "I'll meet him, but I'm not promising anything." Lupita smiled, squeezed her daughter's hand. "That's all I ask, Mija." 2 days later, Emma stood in front of the iron gates of the Wellington mansion in Polanco. The house was enormous, modern, the kind of place she'd only seen in magazines. Her beat-up Honda Civic looked absurd, parked in the circular driveway, next to what was probably a $100,000 Mercedes. A housekeeper let her in, led her through hallways decorated with art that probably cost more than Emma's entire education. Finally, they reached a large room on the second floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the Austin skyline, and there, sitting in a wheelchair staring out at the city, was Marcus Wellington. He didn't turn when she entered, didn't acknowledge her presence at all. Emma cleared her throat. "Mr. Wellington, I'm Emma Clark, your mother's friend's daughter. I'm here about the physical therapist position." Still nothing, just his back, rigid with tension, facing her. She tried again. "I know you've been through several therapists already. I understand you're frustrated with the process, but I'd like to let me save us both some time." Marcus finally spoke, his voice cold, empty. He still didn't turn around. "You're here because you need the money. You'll last maybe a week before you realize that no amount of money is worth dealing with a cripple who can't even walk to the bathroom by himself. You'll make some excuse about how it's not a good fit, and you'll leave. Just like all the others." Emma felt anger flash through her. She'd dealt with difficult patients before, but this level of self-pity, disguised as cynicism, was new. "Are you done feeling sorry for yourself?" That got his attention. Marcus finally turned his wheelchair around, and Emma got her first real look at him. He was handsome, even with the dark circles under his eyes and the stubble that suggested he hadn't bothered shaving in days. Strong jaw, intelligent dark eyes that were currently filled with anger and pain. He looked like he hadn't slept properly in weeks. "Excuse me?" His voice was dangerous. "I said, are you done feeling sorry for yourself?" Emma walked further into the room, setting down her medical bag. "Because if you want to sit here and wallow in self-pity, you don't need a physical therapist. You need a psychiatrist." "Get out!" "No." Emma crossed her arms. "I drove 45 minutes to get here. You're going to at least have the decency to let me assess your condition before you dismiss me like you dismissed everyone else." Marcus stared at her, clearly not used to being challenged. "I don't need you. I don't need anyone." "Really?" Emma's voice softened slightly, but lost none of its firmness. "Because from what I understand, you've lost bladder control 3 times this week. You can't transfer from bed to chair without assistance. You haven't attempted any real physical therapy in over a month, and you're drinking yourself to sleep every night." His jaw clenched. "Who told you that?" "Your doctor is concerned about you. He sent me your file." She paused. "Mr. Wellington, I'm not here to judge you. I'm not here to pity you. I'm here to help you recover, but I can't do that if you won't let me." "The doctor said 5% chance of recovery," Marcus said, and for the first time his voice cracked slightly. 5%. Do you understand what that means? It means 95% chance of staying in that chair forever," Emma said bluntly. "Unless you fight for that 5% like your life depends on it." Silence filled the room. Marcus looked at this young woman who was barely in her mid-20s, who came from a world completely different from his, who had no idea what it felt like to lose everything in a single moment. And yet something in her eyes, something in her absolute refusal to treat him with pity or kid gloves, made him pause. "Why would you care?" He finally asked quietly. "You don't know me. I'm just a paycheck to you." Emma sat down in the chair across from him, meeting his eyes directly. "You're right, I don't know you. And yes, I need the money. My mother needs eye surgery we can't afford. We have medical bills that are drowning us. So yes, the money matters." She leaned forward. "But I became a physical therapist because I watched my father die in a public hospital that didn't have enough staff to give him proper care. I watched him slip away while nurses who were working triple shifts tried their best but couldn't save him. I promised myself I'd spend my life making sure other people didn't suffer the way he did. So this is charity." Marcus's voice was bitter. "No, this is me doing my job, and my job is helping people recover from injuries that seem impossible to overcome." She stood up. "But I can only help people who actually want to be helped. So I'll ask you once, do you want to fight for that 5%? Or do you want to give up and spend the rest of your life proving everyone right about those odds?" Marcus looked at her for a long moment. Looked at this woman who didn't flinch from his anger, who didn't soften her words to spare his feelings, who challenged him in a way no one had dared since the accident. "What would the process look like?" he finally asked. Emma pulled a folder from her bag. Intensive physical therapy, 6 hours a day minimum, split into 3 sessions. Strength training, range of motion exercises, neural stimulation. It's going to hurt. A lot. You're going to want to quit almost every day. And there's no guarantee it'll work. Sounds awful. It is. Emma opened the folder, showing him a detailed treatment plan. "But it's the only chance you have." Marcus stared at the papers, at the clinical descriptions of exercises and treatments, at the timeline that stretched months into the future with no promises, only brutal work and pain. "When do we start?" he said. "Tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. Emma stood, extended her hand. "And Mr. Wellington?" "I don't quit, so you better not either." Marcus shook her hand. Her grip was firm, confident. "Call me Marcus." "Only if you call me Emma." As she left the room, Marcus turned his wheelchair back to the window. But this time, he wasn't staring at the city with bitterness and despair. For the first time in 6 weeks, he was thinking about the future and wondering if maybe, just maybe, that 5% chance wasn't so impossible after all. Subscribe for the next chapter. Emma's first day of work is going to test both of them in ways they never expected. And what starts as a professional relationship is about to become something much more complicated. 6 a.m. came too early. Emma let herself into the mansion using the key code Lupita had given her. The house was silent, expensive and cold in the pre-dawn darkness. She found Marcus exactly where she expected him, still in bed, clearly awake but refusing to move. "Good morning," she said, flipping on the lights without warning. Marcus groaned, throwing an arm over his eyes. "Go away." "Nope. We start at 6. It's 6:02. Emma walked to the windows and opened the curtains, flooding the room with early light. "Time to get up." "I changed my mind. I don't want to do this." Emma had heard that before. Every difficult patient said it the first morning. She walked to his bedside, arms crossed. "Too bad. You shook my hand. That's a contract in my book. I'll pay you the full week anyway. Just leave." "Marcus, look at me." She waited until he lowered his arm and met her eyes. "You have 2 choices. You can lie in this bed feeling sorry for yourself until your muscles atrophy completely and that 5% becomes 0%. Or you can get up, take a shower, and start fighting for your life. It hurts." "I know." Her voice softened just slightly. "It's supposed to. Pain means the nerves are still working. Pain means there's something to fight for." Silence, then quietly, "What if I can't do it? Then we'll try again tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after that." Emma pulled back the covers. "But first, you have to try today." The bathroom was the hardest part. Marcus had been avoiding showers, settling for sponge baths he could do himself from the wheelchair. The idea of Emma seeing him naked, helpless, completely vulnerable, was worse than the physical pain. But Emma was relentlessly professional. She explained every step before doing it, asked permission even when she didn't need to, maintained his dignity even when the situation was inherently undignified. By the time they finished, and he was dressed in therapy clothes, Marcus felt exhausted, and it wasn't even 7 a.m. "Good," Emma said, as if reading his mind. "You should be tired. We're just getting started." The first therapy session was brutal. Emma had him on the parallel bars, supporting his weight with his arms, while she manually manipulated his legs through walking motions. His shoulders screamed, sweat poured down his face. Every muscle in his upper body burned, "I can't," he gasped after 15 minutes. "Yes, you can. 5 more steps." "Emma, 5 more steps." He wanted to hate her, wanted to fire her, send her away, retreat back to the darkness of his room. But something in her voice, that absolute certainty that he could do it, made him push through the pain and take 5 more steps. When they finally finished, he collapsed into his wheelchair, chest heaving. Emma handed him water and a towel without comment. She made notes in her tablet, already planning tomorrow's session. "You did well," she said. "I did terrible. You did 15 minutes on your first day. Most people quit after 5. She looked up from her notes. "Tomorrow, we'll do 20. Over the next 2 weeks, a rhythm developed. Marcus stopped fighting the 6 a.m. wake-ups, stopped complaining about the pain. He pushed himself harder than Emma asked, trying to prove something to her or to himself or to the universe that had taken his legs. And slowly, impossibly, things changed. He could feel sensations in his right thigh, tingles, pressure, not much but more than nothing. Emma celebrated that tiny victory like he'd won an Olympic medal. They talked during sessions about her father's death, about his father's death, about how they both built their lives around honoring dead men, about the weight of expectations and the cost of ambition. "Why did you say yes to Victoria?" Emma asked one afternoon during stretching exercises. "When she proposed, I mean." Marcus was quiet for a moment. "She was perfect, on paper. Right family, right connections, right ambition. It made sense. Did you love her?" "I thought I did. Or maybe I loved the idea of her." He paused. "I'm not sure I knew what love actually was. Still don't." Emma's hands stilled on his calf muscle. "Love is showing up every day. Even when it's hard, especially when it's hard." Their eyes met. Something passed between them, something neither was ready to name yet. "Like you do," Marcus said quietly. "Like I do," Emma agreed and went back to her work. It was during the 3rd week, during a particularly painful neural stimulation session, that Marcus reached his breaking point. The electrical impulses were meant to wake up dormant nerves, but they felt like fire in his legs. He gripped the therapy table, jaw clenched, trying not to scream. "Stop!" he gasped. "Please, Emma, stop!" But she didn't stop. "Breathe through it. Focus on my voice. You're okay." "I said stop!" His hand shot out, grabbing her wrist. Not hard enough to hurt, but firm enough to make his point. Emma looked at his hand on her wrist, then at his face. She didn't pull away, didn't flinch, just waited until he let go. "I'm sorry," he said immediately. "I didn't mean—" "I know." She sat down beside him on the therapy table. "Marcus, I need you to trust me. This pain is temporary, but if we don't push through it, you'll be in that wheelchair permanently. Is that what you want?" "No." His voice broke. "No, I want to walk again. I want to run. I want to dance at my own wedding someday. I want everything I had before. Then let me help you get it back." He nodded, and she resumed the treatment. This time, he focused on her face instead of the pain, on the concentration in her eyes, the gentle competence of her hands, the absolute faith she had in the process, even when he had none. And that's when Marcus realized something that terrified him more than the paralysis. He was falling in love with his physical therapist. The professional boundary they'd maintained so carefully was starting to blur. Their conversations went deeper, lasted longer. Sometimes Emma stayed after sessions were done, talking with him about nothing and everything while the sun set over Austin. She told him about growing up poor, about dreams she'd given up to take care of her mother. He told her about the pressure of building an empire, about the loneliness of success. They found commonality in their differences, connection in their shared understanding of sacrifice. One evening, 4 weeks into treatment, Emma was doing massage therapy on his legs. Her hands worked methodically, stimulating blood flow, maintaining muscle tone. Marcus was half asleep, relaxed in a way he hadn't been since before the accident. "Emma," he said quietly, Thank you for not giving up on me." Her hands paused. She looked up at him, and the expression on her face was so tender it made his chest ache. "I told you. I don't quit. Everyone else did. I'm not everyone else." Their eyes held. The air between them changed, charged with something neither wanted to acknowledge, because acknowledging it would change everything. Emma was the first to look away. She went back to her work, but both of them knew something had shifted. The line between patient and therapist, between professional and personal, was getting harder to see. And outside the mansion walls, Victoria Ashford was making plans that would threaten to destroy everything Marcus was building. But neither Marcus nor Emma knew that yet. All they knew was that the next morning they'd wake up at 6 a.m. and fight together for one more day of progress. One more day closer to walking. One more day closer to something neither of them was brave enough to name. Next chapter, Emma discovers Victoria's plot and has to make an impossible choice. Subscribe to see what happens when love and loyalty collide. 8 weeks into treatment, Marcus moved his toes. Emma was running through routine range of motion exercises when she saw it. The smallest twitch, his right big toe responding to a command his brain sent. She froze, staring at his foot. "Did you just—" She couldn't finish the sentence. "I felt it," Marcus whispered, his voice shaking. "Emma, I felt it and I moved it." She dropped to her knees beside the therapy table, hands on his foot. "Do it again. Try again." He closed his eyes, concentrating with everything he had. And there it was. Definite movement. Small, but real. Emma started crying. She couldn't help it. 2 months of brutal work, of pain and frustration and doubt, and finally, progress that couldn't be denied. "We did it," she said through tears. "Marcus, we did it." He pulled her up from the floor into an embrace that started as celebration but became something else. Her face pressed against his chest, his arms around her, both of them shaking with emotion that had nothing to do with physical therapy anymore. "I couldn't have done this without you," he said into her hair. Emma pulled back just enough to look at him. They were inches apart. She could see gold flecks in his dark eyes she'd never noticed before. Could feel his heart racing against her palms. "Marcus, we shouldn't—" "I know," he said. But he didn't let go. The kiss happened like gravity, inevitable. Neither could say who moved first. His lips were gentle, questioning. Hers were soft, yielding. It was tender and desperate and absolutely wrong and completely right all at once. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, reality crashed back. "I'm your therapist," Emma said, but she didn't move away. "I know. This is completely unprofessional. I know. We could both get in serious trouble. I know." Marcus cupped her face in his hands. "Emma, I know all the reasons this is a terrible idea. But I'm falling in love with you, and I don't know how to stop." She closed her eyes. "I'm falling in love with you too. That's what scares me." "Why?" "Because you're Marcus Wellington, billionaire CEO. You belong to a world I'll never fit into. And when you're fully recovered, when you don't need me anymore—" "Hey," he made her look at him, "I'm not going to stop needing you just because I can walk. That's not how this works. You don't know that. Victoria was perfect for your world. You're everything she wasn't. You're real. You're honest. You see me, not my bank account." He paused. "Victoria left me when I needed her most. You stayed. That tells me everything I need to know." They agreed to keep it quiet. Professional during sessions, personal only in private. It was risky, complicated, but neither could deny what was growing between them anymore. The physical progress accelerated. With the toe movement came more sensation. Within 2 weeks, Marcus could flex his ankle. By week 10, he could bend his knee slightly. The doctors were shocked. Dr. Ramirez called it unprecedented, but Emma knew it wasn't just the therapy. It was having something to fight for beyond himself. It was wanting to be whole, not just to reclaim his old life, but to build a new one. They stole moments between sessions, quick kisses when no one was looking, conversations that lasted until midnight. Marcus told her about his dreams for the company, about wanting to build affordable housing for working families. Emma told him about her dream of opening free clinics across Texas. "We could do it together," Marcus said one night, holding her close on the sofa in his room. "When I get back on my feet, literally and figuratively, use the company's resources for something that actually matters. Your board would never approve. Then I'll fire the board." He said it so simply, like it was obvious. "Emma, money isn't worth anything if you can't use it to help people. You taught me that." She kissed him, slow and deep. "I love you. I love you too." It was Lupita who noticed first. The way they looked at each other, the way Emma smiled differently now, the way Marcus pushed himself harder in therapy, as if trying to prove something. She pulled her daughter aside one afternoon. "Mija, be careful." "I don't know what you mean," Emma said, but she couldn't meet her mother's eyes. "I've worked for rich families my whole life. I know how these things end." Lupita's voice was gentle but firm. "He cares about you now, but when he's fully recovered, when his old life calls him back, Marcus isn't like that." "Maybe not. I hope not." Lupita touched her daughter's face. "But protect your heart, Emma, because his world has ways of destroying people like us." That night, Emma couldn't sleep. She lay in her small room on the third floor of the mansion, staring at the ceiling, wondering if her mother was right, wondering if she was being naive, wondering if this beautiful thing growing between her and Marcus was real or just circumstance. But then she remembered the way he looked at her, the way he listened when she spoke, like her words were the most important thing in the world, the way he'd started talking about their future together, not his future alone. She decided to trust it, to trust him. 2 days later, she would discover Victoria's plot and realize her mother's warning came too late. 2 days later, everything would change. But tonight, Emma let herself believe in fairy tales. Let herself believe that a girl from East Austin and a billionaire from Polanco could build something real. Let herself believe in love. Next chapter. Emma overhears the conversation that will either destroy everything or prove that love is stronger than betrayal. Don't miss it. The laundry room was in the basement. Emma almost never went down there. Lupita handled all the household linens, and Emma did her own scrubs in the small washer on the third floor. But today, her machine was broken, and she needed clean uniforms for tomorrow's session. She heard the voice before she saw anyone. Victoria's voice, coming from the small office adjacent to the laundry room. The door was half open. Emma froze at the bottom of the stairs, basket of dirty scrubs in her arms. "I told you it's going perfectly," Victoria was saying into her phone. Her voice had none of the sweetness Emma had heard the one time they'd briefly met. It was cold, calculated. "The lawyer says with the medical certificates we got, we can declare him mentally incompetent within weeks." Emma's blood ran cold. She backed up silently, pressing against the wall where she couldn't be seen, but could still hear every word. "Marcus is finished. Physically he's a cripple, and soon we'll prove he's mentally incapable too." Victoria laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Rodrigo will be the new CEO. Marcus is too busy with his little therapist to notice we're draining the accounts." Emma's hand flew to her mouth. "Oh God! Oh God!" "The physical therapist?" Victoria's voice dripped with contempt. "She's nobody, a poor girl from East Austin. No lawyers, no power, no threat. If she interferes, we destroy her career. Plant rumors about inappropriate relationships with vulnerable patients. She'll never work in healthcare again." Emma felt like she might vomit. They were going to steal everything from Marcus, and they were going to use her, the fact that she was nobody, the fact that she'd fallen in love with her patient, to ensure no one would believe either of them if they tried to fight back. 2 more weeks, darling, just 2 more weeks, and we'll have everything." Victoria paused, listening. "I have to go. I'm picking up some documents I left here months ago. See you tonight." Emma heard footsteps approaching. She grabbed her laundry basket and ran back up the stairs as quietly as she could, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might explode. She made it to the second-floor landing just as she heard Victoria's heels clicking in the main hallway below. She stood there shaking, basket clutched to her chest, trying to process what she'd just heard. Marcus was in danger. Real danger. Victoria and this Rodrigo person were going to take everything he'd built. They were going to use his injury, his vulnerability, to declare him incompetent. They were going to steal his company, his fortune, his legacy. And if Emma tried to stop them, they'd destroy her. She thought about her mother's warning, about protecting herself, about how people like her always got crushed when they got involved with people like Marcus. She could walk away, take the money she'd already earned, find another job, pretend she'd never heard anything. Victoria was right about one thing. Emma was nobody. She had no power, no resources, no way to fight people who could buy judges and lawyers and medical certificates. But Marcus trusted her. Marcus loved her. And more than that, Marcus was a good man who didn't deserve to be destroyed by people who'd only ever seen him as a bank account. Emma set down the laundry basket and walked to Marcus's room. Her hands were still shaking. He was at his desk, reviewing construction plans, looking more like his old self every day. The progress over the past 2 weeks had been remarkable. He could stand for several minutes now with minimal support, could take shuffling steps with a walker. He looked up when she entered, and his face lit up with that smile that was only for her. "Hey, beautiful. Thought you were doing laundry. Marcus, we need to talk." Her voice was shaking. Something happened. The smile faded. He wheeled closer. "What's wrong?" She told him everything. Every word Victoria said. Every detail of the conspiracy. Every threat against her if she interfered. Marcus's face went from concern to shock to cold fury she'd never seen before. When she finished, he was silent for a long moment. Then, "She was cheating on me before the accident." "What?" "That's why she was so quick to leave. She already had someone else." His jaw clenched. "And now she wants to steal everything too." "Marcus, what do we do? I don't have any proof. It's my word against hers, and she's right. I'm nobody. No one will believe me." He took her hands. "I believe you. That's all that matters. But how do we stop her? She has lawyers, judges, doctors all lined up." "So do I." Marcus pulled out his phone. "Robert Chen has been my family's attorney for 30 years. He's the only person besides you I trust completely." He started typing. "We need evidence, recordings, bank records, everything." "Marcus, she said 2 weeks. That's not enough time." "Then we make it enough time." He looked at her with absolute determination. "Emma, you just risked everything to tell me this. You could have walked away, protected yourself, but you didn't. I love you. I couldn't let them destroy you. And I won't let them destroy you either." He cupped her face. "We do this together. And when it's over, Victoria's going to regret the day she underestimated both of us." Deal. Over the next 48 hours, Robert Chen became a constant presence at the mansion. He installed recording devices throughout the house, hired a forensic accountant to trace the missing money, found a private investigator who specialized in corporate fraud, and Marcus doubled down on his physical therapy because he'd realized something crucial. If he could walk into that courtroom, if he could stand on his own 2 feet and prove he was fully capable, Victoria's entire case would collapse. "I need to walk," he told Emma during a brutal morning session. "Not shuffle, not stumble, really walk." "Marcus, that's still weeks away." "We don't have weeks. We have days." He gripped the parallel bars until his knuckles were white. "Push me harder. I can take it." So Emma did. 6 hours of therapy became 8, then 10. She worked him until he collapsed from exhaustion. Then they'd rest for an hour and do it again. His body screamed in protest. His muscles burned. But every day he got stronger. On day 4, he took 3 steps without the walker. On day 7, he walked 10 feet independently. On day 9, he climbed the stairs. Emma cried when she saw him at the top of that marble staircase, standing on his own, victorious. "You did it. We did it." He walked down to her, actually walked, each step deliberate but steady. "Now we finish this." That night, lying in Emma's small bed on the 3rd floor, where they'd stolen a few hours together, Marcus held her close. "Whatever happens tomorrow, whatever Victoria throws at us, I need you to know something," he said quietly. "What? When this is over, I'm going to marry you. I'm going to spend the rest of my life proving that you weren't nobody. You were everything." Emma kissed him in the darkness. "I already know." Tomorrow, Victoria would walk into a trap. Tomorrow, justice would be served. But tonight, in a small room in a mansion that represented everything they were fighting for and against, Emma and Marcus held each other and prepared for war. Final chapter. The confrontation you saw in Chapter 1, but now you know the whole story. Subscribe to see how it all ends. The morning of the confrontation, Marcus woke before dawn. Emma was still asleep beside him in his bed, where she'd stayed the night before. They'd stopped hiding. After today, there would be nothing left to hide. He slipped out carefully, not wanting to wake her, walked to the bathroom on his own, still unsteady, still requiring concentration, but walking. He stared at himself in the mirror. 10 weeks ago, he couldn't feel his legs. Now he was about to walk into battle. "You're up early?" Emma appeared in the doorway wearing one of his shirts. "Couldn't sleep." He turned to face her. "What if this doesn't work? What if she doesn't incriminate herself?" Emma crossed the room, wrapped her arms around him. "Then we have Plan B and Plan C. Robert has enough financial evidence to bury her even without a recording. I want her to admit it. I want to hear her say it." "You will." Emma kissed his chest. "She's arrogant. She thinks she's already won. That's her weakness." At 2 p.m., Robert Chen arrived with his team. They wired the entire living room with audio and video equipment, hidden in books, plants, picture frames. By 3:30, everything was ready. "Remember," Robert said to Marcus, "let her talk. Don't interrupt. The more she says, the more we have." Marcus nodded. He was wearing a custom suit he'd had delivered that morning. First time in a suit since the accident. He looked like the CEO he used to be. Felt like him too. Emma helped him with his tie. "You look like you could buy and sell the world." "I'd rather just have you," she smiled. "You already do." At 3:50, they heard the car in the driveway. Victoria, exactly on time. Always punctual when she wanted something. "Places," Robert said quietly. Emma went upstairs. Robert moved to the adjacent room. Marcus positioned himself at the top of the staircase, heart pounding, rehearsing in his mind what he was about to do. The front door opened. Victoria's voice echoed through the house. "I'll call you back, darling. This won't take long." Marcus heard her footsteps in the foyer. Heard her call his name impatiently. This was it. He started down the stairs. The shock on Victoria's face when she saw him standing, walking, alive in ways she'd clearly hoped he'd never be again. That moment alone was worth everything he'd been through. What followed was exactly what you witnessed in Chapter 1. The recording playing, Robert presenting evidence, Victoria's world crumbling as she realized she'd been caught. Every word she said, recorded, every signature on that confession, legal and binding. But there were moments you didn't see in that first chapter, small details that mattered. When Victoria attacked Emma verbally, calling her a gold digger, Marcus had to physically restrain himself from intervening. He'd promised Emma she could speak for herself, and she did, with a dignity that made him fall in love with her all over again. When Victoria signed the confession, her hands shaking so badly she could barely hold the pen, Marcus felt no triumph. Only sadness for what she could have been if she'd chosen differently. And when the door finally closed behind Victoria for the last time, when the echo faded and silence filled the mansion, Marcus didn't feel victorious. He felt free. Robert Chen packed up his briefcase, shook Marcus's hand. "Congratulations, you just saved your entire empire." "No," Marcus said, looking at Emma, who was standing on the stairs. "She saved me. The empire was just a bonus." After Robert left, Marcus and Emma stood in the now quiet living room. The afternoon sun was setting, painting everything gold. "It's really over," Emma said softly. "No." Marcus walked to her, walked on his own, no support needed. "It's really beginning." He got down on one knee. It took effort, balance he was still mastering, but he did it, pulled a small box from his jacket pocket. "I bought this 2 weeks ago," he said. "Been carrying it around, waiting for the right moment. Figured saving my company and proving I can walk was probably that moment." Emma's hands flew to her mouth. "Marcus, Emma Clark, you came into my life when I was broken. You didn't fix me. You showed me how to fix myself. You didn't save me. You taught me how to fight. You didn't complete me. You made me want to be better than I was." He opened the box, revealing a ring that managed to be both elegant and simple. "Will you marry me?" "Yes," she said through tears. "Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes." He stood up, showing off now, and kissed her properly. She jumped into his arms and he caught her, held her, spun her around because he could, because his legs worked, because she'd believed in him when no one else did. "Your society friends are going to hate me," Emma said when they finally broke apart. "Then we'll find new friends." Marcus slid the ring onto her finger. "We'll build our own world, one that doesn't care about where you came from or how much money your parents had." 3 months later, they married in the mansion gardens, 50 people who actually loved them. Lupita cried through the entire ceremony. Dr. Ramirez gave Emma away. Robert Chen was best man. Marcus walked Emma down the aisle himself. No wheelchair, no walker. Just him, on his own 2 feet, claiming the woman who'd given him back his life. Their first dance was to a song Emma picked, something soft and honest about broken things becoming beautiful. Marcus held her close, swaying to music, and whispered, "Remember when I said I needed to make love?" She laughed against his chest. "In the therapy room, when I thought you meant something completely different. I meant exactly what you think I meant, but also this. This moment, this life, making love to you isn't just physical. It's choosing you every day. It's building something real. We're really doing this. Girl from East Austin marrying a billionaire." "No." Marcus tilted her chin up. "We're 2 people who found each other when they both needed it most. Everything else is just details." Years later, when reporters asked Marcus about his company's transformation into affordable housing and free medical clinics, when they asked why he'd given away millions to communities that couldn't pay him back, he always gave the same answer. "My wife taught me that real wealth isn't what you have, it's what you give. She gave me everything when I had nothing. Now I'm just passing it forward." And when they asked Emma what it was like, marrying into that world, navigating high society as an outsider, she smiled that quiet smile and said, "I didn't marry a world. I married a man. The rest is just noise." In the end, Victoria's plan had failed spectacularly. Rodrigo fled to Spain. Victoria moved to New York, where nobody knew her story. The company flourished under Marcus's new vision, but none of that mattered as much as what happened every morning in the Wellington household. Marcus still woke up early, still did his exercises, maintaining the strength Emma had helped him build. And Emma still worked as a physical therapist, now running a network of free clinics Marcus funded across Texas. Every morning, they had coffee together in that same living room where Victoria's world had ended and theirs had begun. Every morning, Marcus told Emma he loved her. Every morning, she told him the same. And every morning, they chose each other again. Because that's what real love is. Not the fairy tale, not the rescue, not the miracle recovery, just showing up every single day. Especially when it's hard, especially when the world says it's impossible, especially when you're broken and scared and don't know if you'll make it. That's when love matters most. That's when it becomes real. This story teaches us that true love doesn't need perfect circumstances. It needs two people willing to fight for each other when everything else falls apart. Marcus learned that vulnerability isn't weakness. It's the doorway to real connection. Emma discovered that her worth wasn't measured by her bank account, but by the size of her heart. Together, they proved that when two people choose each other completely, they can overcome anything. Subscribe for more stories that remind us what really matters. Share this if you believe in second chances and love that transforms. Comment below what you learned from Marcus and Emma's journey. Thanks for watching. See you in the next story.